What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the next part of the Build a Spotify app series. In this part, we're finally going to start taking a look at the library tab on our app. So this third tab here, where we're basically going to allow the user to see their playlists and the albums that they save. So a user can create their own playlist, add songs and save albums that they like. So particularly in this video, we'll take a look at just setting up the architecture since we're going to use child controllers. But if that all sounds good, make sure you start by liking this video, opening up Xcode, and let's jump back into our XC workspace. So first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is we are going to select our 12 Pro Max simulator from this list. And we're going to go ahead and give it a run to make sure nothing has broken since we last worked in the project. Just bear with our simulator being nice and slow. And while it's doing that, let me go ahead and open up that controller, which should be under core. And it is, what do we call it? I think we called it library controller. Yep, library view controller. Here is our app. It has just installed and it's launching. So bear with it, a couple seconds here. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Okay, cool. So it's all working. There is browse, there is search, and there is library. So what we want to do here is have a heading, kind of like a segmented control where we can, go between playlists and albums. And we could put all the logic for both, creating playlists and saved albums in this controller. But that's not really good design because they're fundamentally different things. And we want to segment it out just so we have a cleaner architecture. So we're going to introduce a concept of child controllers, and you might be familiar with it, but if you're not, it's basically the concept of this controller having two children for which it will manage their views. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, let's take a look at what controllers we have in other here. Looks like we're going to have to create two new controllers. And what I'm going to do is let's create a new folder under other. And we're just going to call it library since this other folder is getting a little large. And we're going to create two new files in here that are going to be Cocoa Touch classes. This is going to be UI view controller. And the first one is going to be library playlists view controller. Go ahead and give that a create, hit enter twice. All I'm going to do in here is just give it a background color so we can actually see it once we go ahead and start using it. We're going to say the background color here is going to be a system, let's go with a system pink. And we want one more, and the other one is going to be library albums view controller. So let's go ahead and create that. We'll say library albums view controller, pretty simple. Go ahead and create that. And we're going to get rid of that comments that it gives us here that nobody ever uses. And we'll give this a background color as well. So I'm going to say this view has a background color of, let's say, system orange. And now that we've created these two, we want to add them as sub view controllers, children rather, in our library. But we also need a way to kind of horizontally swipe between those two controllers. So let's go back to our library controller. And what we first want to do is add a scroll view that we can horizontally swipe between two different screens. It's going to be paging. So I'm going to go ahead and create three things here. The first one will be the playlists VC, which is going to be an instance of our library playlist view controller. And the other one is going to be our albums VC. And this one will be library albums view controller. And the third thing that we want is going to be a scroll view. So this is going to be, I'll just call it scroll view, UI scroll view. We're going to go ahead and create it here in this anonymous closure. And let's see, we're going to say let scroll view is a UI scroll view. Let's go ahead and return scroll view here. I'm going to say scroll view. We want to set the paging on here. So we're going to say is paging. Let's see, is paging will be true, just like that. And we are going to need to set the content size in just a moment, but let's go ahead and add this as a subview at the top of view to load, right below the background color. We're going to say view, add subview, and we want to go ahead and lay this out. So I'm going to say view, view did layout subviews. We're going to say super view to layout subviews. And we're going to give the scroll view a frame. So let's talk about what the frame needs to be. The X is going to be 0. The Y is going to be view.saveAreaInsets.top. And we're actually also going to add 55 to this. And the reason we're going to add 55 is we're going to have a control up here where we can tap on either playlists or albums so we can swipe between them, as well as use that control. And I'll show you guys that in a moment so it's a little clearer. The view's width is going to be view.width, and the height is going to be view.height, subtracting the safe area insets.top. We also want to subtract the safe area insets.bottom and 55, which is the padding that we gave in the Y. So let's go ahead and create that. We are also going to want to set the delegate for the scroll view so we can control some other cool UI interaction, and we'll see why in a moment. Let's see why this is yelling at me here. We have return scroll view. This should have an equal before the curly. We also need to conform to the scroll view delegate here. So I'm going to go ahead and add an extension, and we are going to say this is UI scroll view delegate, just like that. And we're eventually going to need to implement scroll view did scroll. But before we further move along, let's go ahead and set a background color on our scroll view, and let's make sure we can see it. So let me go ahead and say this is yellow. So go ahead and give it a run, Command R to compile and run your project. And let's make sure we see a yellow screen here, which in fact we do, and we should be able to actually swipe in here, which we are doing. We're scrolling, you just can't really see it because it's all yellow. Let's go ahead and now add these two controllers as children. So I'm going to add a function called add children, and we are going to call this at the bottom of view to load. And let's go ahead and implement it, and we'll see how you actually add a child's controller. So the first thing we want to do is add the playlist controller. So we are going to say add child, and let's see, add child, and this is going to be playlists VC. And if you recall, playlist VC and albums VC are instances of the two controllers we want to make children. So we're going to say add child. The next thing we're going to do is add the playlist view controller's view into the scroll view. So this add child, what it does is it allows all of the view lifecycle functions, so view to load, view to appear, to work appropriately on the playlist library controller, even though it'll be a child of the current controller. So it's a little confusing, but bear with me here. So the next thing we're going to do is say scroll view. We want to add a subview, which is the playlist VC's frame, which is actually its view is what I meant. But we do want to set the view's frame for the playlist VC. And this is going to be pretty simple. We'll say cgrect 0, 0. Width will be scroll view dot width, and the height will be scroll view dot height. And finally, to finish out adding this as a child, you need to tell the child controller that you did become, the child of a parent. So we're going to say did move to parent, and the parent is a view controller that's becoming the parent, which is self. So go ahead and give it a run. And now what you'll see in your scroll view here is this pink view, and we can swipe. Actually, we can't swipe yet because I never set a content size. So before this add children, we'll say the content size of the scroll view is CG size. The width will be scroll view dot width divided by, rather multiplied by 2. And the height is going to be scroll view dot height. Go ahead and give that a run. And now you'll notice you already saw the pink view there, but we can also swipe between, hopefully, that other one as well. Looks like we actually can't. Interesting. So let's see what's going on. So we have a scroll view set. The content size, we're saying the width multiplied by 2. I guess the width might not be set at this point, so we'll say view.width divided by 2, because view.load is called before we actually set the width of the scroll view, so that probably won't work. But now we're able to swipe between this pink thing. And if you remember, this pink view is the background color of the playlist controller's view. And we're setting it in its view.load. Now we want to also not have a yellow screen here, right? This yellow one is just a scroll view. We want to do all those things that we did here for the playlist one for the albums controller as well. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it. And we're just going to update this. We're going to say add child for albums VC. This is going to be albums and albums VC. We want to add its subview. The only thing that's going to change now is the frame, and the X is the thing we're going to bump and say this is view.width. And that's because we want it next to this pink view in the content size of the scroll view. I'm also going to go ahead and get rid of the background color of the scroll view, which is yellow. And now we should be able to scroll horizontally between this pink and this orange view. And this orange view is our albums view controllers view background. That's a mouthful. So let's go into here, and here you can see we're setting this to be system orange. So this allows us to decouple the logic of this playlists library controller and the albums. Now we also left a little bit of space up here, and we did that intentionally so we can add a button where you can switch between these two views, because it's not really apparent by looking at it to the user that they can swipe. So what we're going to do is create a view for that. So I'm going to actually first make this a system blue so it's a little nicer color. And we're going to come back to this library view controller. And there's one of two things we could do. So we could just add 2 buttons here and an indicator, which will be a total of 3 subviews so the controller directly. Or we can create our own custom view and use it that way. And that's a more appropriate way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and create another view in here. And it's going to be a Cocoa Touch class. We're going to subclass a UI view. I'm going to go ahead and call this library toggle view. Call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it this because we're kind of toggling between the 2 states. The first thing that we are going to want in here is a initializer override called super.init, passing in the frame. And then we're also going to want the required initializer. And we're also going to want to lay out sub views, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and give this a background color. Let's say red. And now in here, what we also want is 2 buttons, like I said. So it should be playlists, and then right next to it should be albums. So let's go ahead and create those. So we're going to say the first one is playlist button, which is a UI button. And inside here, we're going to say button is a UI button. We're going to return button here. We'll say button set title color, which will be label based on light mode or dark mode. The state is going to be normal. And we want to set a title on here, of course. So the title is going to be playlists. The state will be normal. And that's probably sufficient. That's all we really need. I'm going to copy and paste it. And this one is going to be the albums button, and its title will be albums. Pretty simple. All right, let's spell that correctly. We want to go ahead and add these as subviews. I'm going to say add subview for the playlist button as well as for the albums button. We want to add a target to each of these. So we're going to say playlist button dot add target self with a selector. That is not a selector. We want a selector with a pound sign. Did tap play lists and an event of touch up inside. I'm going to go ahead and put this right here, the selector we just called up there so it doesn't give us an error. And let's go ahead and copy and paste this and apply it to albums button as well. So we'll say albums button, and this one is going to be did tap albums. Let's go ahead and create that function as well. All right. And let's see, this we need to rename to did tap albums. Now in view in layout subviews, we want to go ahead and lay out both of these buttons. So what I'm going to do is we are just going to hard code the width to be 100 and assume it's correct. So I'm going to say CZ rect. The X is going to be 0, Y is 0, width is 100, and height is, we'll say 50. And the same thing for the actual albums button, except the X is now going to be the playlist button dot right. So it's right on the right-hand side of it. And this will be albums button. So before we go ahead and further work with this, let's go ahead and add this as a subview to our library controller. And let's make sure it's actually showing up appropriately. So let's go into controllers. And let's see, we're going to go to core which is library view controller. I'm going to go ahead and create an instance of this view. So we're going to say private let's, and this is going to be a toggle view. And we're just going to create an instance of the toggle view. We now need to go ahead and add this as a sub view. So I'm going to say view, add sub view, toggle view. And let's go ahead and give it a frame. So we're going to say this is CGRect. And we will say the X is, let's say 10 for the left. So we have a little bit of buffer. Maybe we can just start with 0 and see what it looks like to begin. The width is going to be 200 because each of the buttons we said is 100 wide. And the height is going to be 55. So go ahead and do that and hit Command R, and let's see if we actually start seeing that view. We are also going to need to add one more thing to the view, and I'll see what that is in a moment. So cool, we see our two views here. We have playlists and albums. We had set a background color to that view, so that's looking good. Let me go back and get rid of that background color. So let's see. We have a background color right here. Go ahead and hit Command R. And the next thing we want to do is actually get the tap event for each of these. When I tap on albums, it should auto scroll to this one. And when I tap on playlists, it should auto scroll back, which makes sense. And we're going to leverage a delegate to delegate the button tap and the view back to the controller. So similar to how we've done across the app in a couple of places at this point, we're going to create a delegate protocol out of the name of this view. And this is going to be library toggle view. And this will be toggle view, library toggle view. We'll say did tap playlists, and go ahead and copy and paste that. And this one's going to be did tap albums. We're going to hold a weak reference to this delegate on here. So we're going to say weak var. Delegate is going to be the delegate we created above, optional. And in the two selectors we created, we can simply just call the delegate. So this one is for playlists. We're going to pass in self. And this next one will be for albums. And we'll pass in self here as well. So we'll say did tap on albums, passing in self. And now what we can actually go ahead and do is back in our library view controller. For this view, we are going to assign its delegate and say it is self. So we can receive those calls. We'll say delegate is self. And of course, we're going to get a warning or an error because we're not conforming yet. So I'm going to copy this extension. And we are going to conform to library toggle view delegate. And there should be two functions that you are required to bring in here. So the first one will be did tap playlists. And then we're also going to have did tap for albums. So looks like I got those backwards here. Let's go ahead and fix that. All right. Now in both of these functions, all we really want to do is just scroll our scroll view. So I'm going to say for playlist, we're going to say scroll view, scroll to, let's see, scroll to a given position. We have scroll to visible. It's not what we want. Let's see, we'll say set content offset. Is that what I'm looking for? Yep, set content offset is what we want actually. And here, all we're gonna say is CG points, X is 0 and Y is 0. And actually you could just say dot 0. That's the same thing. And we're gonna say animated is true. And I will copy this whole thing and drop it into the other function. And the only thing that changes is basically where do you want to scroll to. So we'll say once again, CG point, X is going to be view.width and Y will be 0. Go ahead and hit Command R and give it a run. And let's make sure our buttons are actually working. So we're going to go ahead and tap on that. There's a blue one. There's a pink one. So cool. So these are working now and they're separated out from our controller. The one other thing that I like to do, which Spotify also has, is it would be nice if there was like an underline indicator below the button based on whichever one is selected. So the user actually knows like what they're looking at, right? Because right now, when you're on this, of course, the content would kind of give it away what you're looking at, but it's kind of hard to tell what it is. So that is also going to live inside of our toggle view here. So let me go ahead and jump back inside here. And what we are going to do is simply create a UI view, and we'll call it indicator view. I'm going to say private let, and this is going to be a indicator view. And we will say this is a UI view. All right, just like that. So we're going to say it's a pretty vanilla view. like that. We're going to return it. And I'm also going to give it a background color. So of course we can see something here. We'll say return view, view.background color is going to be system green we can go with. And let's see, let's also add a little bit of a nice corner radius. So we're going to say layer masks to bounds is true. I'm also going to say layer has a nice corner radius of perhaps 4. Let's go ahead and add this as a sub view. I'm going to say indicator view. And we also want to go ahead and give it a particular frame. So in layout frames here, or layout subviews, we'll say the frame by default is going to be CGRect 0. So it's going to be underneath the playlist button. The Y is going to be playlist button dot bottom. The width will be 100. It's the standard we're using for the buttons. And the height is perhaps, let's try 3 and see what that looks like. So go ahead and hit Command R to build and run. And let's see if we see that indicator view. We'll work on animating it in just a moment. So we have this underline here. I guess the height of 55 might be a little much actually now that I think about it. So, and it's also flush with the edge of the screen here, maybe a little not, but let's move it up vertically a smidge. And the way I'm gonna do that is we're just gonna bring these up. So instead of the height being 50 here, let's go ahead and say this is or we can actually say 50. But rather I'll say actually, let me change this. So we're gonna say this is 40 and this is 40. All right, looking good. When we tap on this, we also aren't moving the frame. So we do want to go ahead and do something about that. So what we'll do is I am going to introduce an enum inside of this view. And this is going to be called state. And we're going to have 2 states on here, either playlist or album. And by default, we're going to have a var on here. We can actually make it private, I guess, or we could just make it internal. We don't need to prefix it private. And this is going to be state of playlist by default. And the reason we're doing this is when we go ahead and tap on one of these buttons, we want to actually update the state. So if we're going to tap on playlists, I'm going to say that the state is now playlist. And if we tap on this one, we're going to say the state is now album. And the reason that's important is because we are going to lay out based on the state. So here I am going to switch state. And in here, if the state is playlist, we're going to do this. And if the state is album, we're going to do this. And the X is going to change and be 100, since that's the width of each button. So that takes care of if our view lays out again, but we still have not taken care of actually animating this little indicator thing. So we could keep the animation internal to the view, or we could have the controller do it. I'm going to keep it in the view here, and let's do it. So it'll be pretty simple. So what we will do is we can simply say UI view. Let's see, UI view animates with duration. And let's see which one we want. We want this one. We'll say the animation takes 0.2 seconds. And basically what the animation is we're going to say self dot indicator view dot frame is going to basically equal the frame, which is right down here. So let me go ahead and actually one thing that we could do, let's be smarter about this. Let's go ahead and say layout indicator. I'm going to make this a function and say layout indicator, go ahead and paste all that stuff in there. And now in this animation, we can literally just say self.layout indicator, and it'll go ahead and update the UI for the indicator based on what state we're in now, since the state is set before. And we're going to paste that into the other function as well. And let's see if it animates. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on this. And look at that. It's actually animating the indicator left and right based on whichever thing we're on. There is one more issue that I want to solve before wrapping up this video. And that is it's not actually moving the indicator if we scroll. So you could write a little bit of a more involved animation where the indicator slowly moves as you move this. Or you could just, in scroll views delegate, figure out, if you're on the screen, then go ahead and move the indicator. So if we do that, we need to introduce a function onto this view. and that's going to be update for state. We're going to say update for state, and we're going to pass in the states. And we can say self.state will be state. And then we can say with an animation, lay out the indicator, because that's the thing that's going to change. So pretty simple. Now what we can do is go back to the library view controller. And in scroll view did scroll, we want to basically check if the scroll view's what its x offset is. I'm going to say if scroll view.content offset.x is greater than or equal to view.width subtracting 100. So if it's 100 before it gets to this blue screen, which would be something around, I guess here, it's going to switch to albums. And the way that we're going to do that is we will say in this actual if block, we'll say the toggle view, we want to update for view for albums. And otherwise, we can go ahead and say toggle view, update for state playlists. So go ahead and give it a run, and let's see if the indicator moves automatically as we scroll here. So I expect it to move once we get to about 100. All right, it didn't actually move, so let's see what the heck is going on. Let's see, content offset x, if this is greater than or equal to view.width subtracting 100. That looks correct to me. So what I'm gonna do is let's go ahead and print out the scroll view content offset.x. Let me see if that's actually printing out. All right, we're going to go ahead and drag this, and it's not even printing out, which is strange because we have conformed to the scroll view delegate here. I think we forgot to assign the delegate, maybe. Nope, we're definitely assigning it to self. So let's see what's going on. Let me put this, let's go ahead and clean some of this up. So this is all the scroll view stuff. All right, that's all the toggle view stuff. We should definitely be printing here. So we're saying scroll view, oh, this is scroll view did scroll to top. That's why, because I made a typo. So let's take all of this stuff, and what we want to implement is scroll view did scroll. That's the function name, not scroll to top. And be careful about that. They're very similarly named. Go ahead and copy and paste that code into here, and hopefully it should work now. All right, so we start off on playlists, and as I scroll and I get to about the 100, it moves over to albums and back. And it moves back right around there. Pretty cool. So you can tweak the numbers as you see fit, but now we have this indicator view, which is always aligning with whichever part of the scroll view which we're on. And what we also accomplished is we abstracted this pink view and the blue view into their own controllers, which will dramatically simplify how we are going to write our code, because each of these have single responsibilities now, right? So the playlist is about the user's playlists and creating a playlist, whereas the albums is about saving an album. So pretty cool. That's the end of this video. In the next one, we're going to actually create playlists and work with the API. If you haven't liked the video already, make sure to do so. Helps out with the algorithm. Leave a comment down below with any questions, errors, feedback. Love hearing from you guys. And of course, subscribe to the channel so we can continue to grow it together. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.